Hey guys, Youngblood with you for another episode of Exploring the Starmap, this time focusing in on the technically unclaimed system of Oberon. Now this was discovered back in 2356, and I say the system is unclaimed, but the very few inhabitants that do live here are humans. Now the system is an interesting one, with a neutron star at the center, meaning it's the leftovers from a collapsed supernova with very strong gravity, a lot of heat, yet little luminosity. Now at only 11 kilometers wide, it still possesses twice the mass of our star Sol. Now, overall, the system has proven to be just a tough place to live, and not just because of the fairly inhospitable star at the center of this system, but also because 3 out of the 4 jump points are leading to Vandal-held systems. Caliban is where we first saw a kingship in human space, and we got pushed out. Tiber, the grinder area that was the military system that we eventually were defeated in and got pushed back to Virgil. Then in Virgil, where we got to this, it's ridiculous, where we got pushed back to Oberon by the Vandal. So basically, we've just gotten pummeled in all of these systems that are surrounding Oberon. Now, there is one human system connected, which is Vega, but even that was the site of a massive Vandal attack. Though it is at least starting to get a resurgence in population now. So while there aren't many settlements, there is a large military presence here as it acts like a buffer to Vandal space. As far as planets go, Oberon I, known as Gon, used to be the second planet, or the second star in a binary star system, leaving behind a carbon planet that was once the core of the star that isn't the neutron star today. Now, at some point, the atmosphere was either burned off or stripped away, leaving just the core, but hearing that it's a carbon planet, a lot of miners rushed here to try and strike it rich collecting diamonds. And while some diamonds have been found, it's mostly coming up with graphite and pure carbon. Mining here is hard, and there are some severe extremes when it comes to temperature, ranging from frigid to boiling, but that's not stopping people from coming here to try and make some money. Oberon II, known as Uriel, was the site of what I guess would be considered a fairly significant terraforming mess. A company came in and sold everyone on this idea of how they were going to try and raise the temperature of the planet's core to facilitate terraforming, but when that failed, it ended up leaving this just frigid tundra environment behind. And if that wasn't bad enough, that just basically this planet was screwed over, there was a bunch of people that were already en route here to end up colonizing the planet, and now without a terraformed planet to live on, they ended up having to try and figure out how to just make it work. So while there are a few settlements on the surface, most ended up moving underground to try and survive on this planet. Now, there isn't much of a government here, really just some families who try and maintain order. Now, after all of that mess, the Vandal eventually moved in, raided the planet, and killed thousands of the settlers. Now, Admiral Bishop was able to rally the troops, get into Oberon, and ending up driving off the second incursion efforts of the Vandal into the system, and that was the first significant victories that we really had over the Vandal. Now, the third planet in orbit is the protoplanet, barely on the edge of the habitable zone, and Oberon IV is another protoplanet that is uninhabitable. These types of worlds are typically oddly shaped with a lot of craters like small moons. Oberon V is a mesoplanet, which is similar to a protoplanet, though it is a little bit bigger, and it's actually been able to form into more of a spherical shape. And this particular one had its atmosphere stripped away at some point, probably during the Nova event. Oberon VI is a gas dwarf, about 2 to 3 times the size of Earth. It's got a gassy atmosphere and very low density. These are also going to be the most common types of planets in the universe, according to some studies that were quoted, though they're not necessarily going to be the most common in the Star Citizen-verse. And finally, we have Oberon VII, which is a gas giant that's made up of alkali metals and carbon monoxide atmosphere, giving you a muddy coloring of the atmosphere and a deadly breathing environment. So it's clearly not a good place to go and to have a picnic or to even refuel, because it's not a hydrogen-rich type of planet. So that's more or less the Oberon system, but you still want to know who may want to come here and who may end up finding value. I think the obvious answer here is that anyone who wants to fight the Vandal, this would be a great launching off point to kind of delve into Vandal-held systems that are connected to this location. I would also have to imagine that this would be a popular location to take up contracts to clear Vandal out of this system if needed, or to provide escorts to traders that may be present. Now, there is a fairly large military presence, though, so there may not be as much of a need for in-system protection here, but then again, systems are very, very big, and the military cannot possibly be everywhere, so there's a lot of value in still having an escort tied to your hip. I think traders could potentially find some work to kind of haul goods here, but the population is small, so I envision more freelancer-sized deliveries as opposed to things like Whole E's delivering stuff here. The population is cut off, and I don't really see much manufacturing or production, so they are likely going to be reliant on getting goods from the outside, but you probably need to figure out scope before you plan on doing too much. I also think somebody with like a ship like a Herald could easily work as like an early warning system, or even jump into Vanduul space and kind of do some scouting and maybe sell that information and maybe even take on some contracts for the military. I think that while even though they say that most haven't found great diamond veins in the first planet, I would have to imagine that it's big enough that some players will end up making a lot of money here with prospectors. With jumping off points to Vanduul space and inbound travelers that are going to do some mining and no real good refueling spots or real settlements to speak of, I would bet that fuel and repair services from ships like Starfarers and Crucibles are going to be pretty in high demand. And yeah, I think that's really about it. You know, you may have some value as far as the connection point to Vega, but honestly, I don't think there's a ton because there's not much you can get at this point. So unless you're wanting to kind of hide here and then do work in Vega and come back, but you see the problem there is you still got the military presence, which complicates things. So that's kind of my money on the Oberon system. If you guys have questions on any of this, please let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more and have a great day. Take care.